What is up guys, and welcome back to another Witch Doctor build video for patch 2.3, and this video is covering the brand new Helltooth set, and my god, it is amazing. In my last video I mentioned that the Poison Dart build still had the edge on the competitive leaderboards. However, since progressing on my Helltooth build, I've managed to climb higher than ever before, and that's without even meeting my maxed out gear requirements. During this video I'll explain what gear and items you will need to play the build effectively, then give a brief explanation of why we take certain items and abilities. The first thing we're going to want to do is take a look at what items you'll be putting into the new Canines Cube. So you'll be wanting a furnace, as you'll struggle without the extra elite damage, as this is primarily a trash obliterator build, followed by the newly buffed Grin Reaper helm, and then followed by a convection of elements, as this build will be cycling through fire, physical and poison elements continuously. Now let's take a look at the gear you will be needing. You will be needing all 6 pieces of the Helltooth set, along with the focus and restraint rings, a Hellfire amulet and a belt of transcendence, and the new Duran braces. For your weapon, you will want a Scrimshaw spear and a high quality Thing of the Deep for your mojo. Next I will explain what stats you want on your items, and you will notice my gear is not quite optimized as of yet, and it's important to keep in mind that for this build you want to be as defensive as possible, taking defensive stats where you can, second only to ability specific stats such as Wall of Death or Zombie Charger. So for example, you will not be taking crit chance on your helm, you will instead opt for either a defensive stat or Zombie Charger. Vitality and an Amethyst gem are a must. For your shoulders you will want intelligence, vitality, Wall of Death damage and either a defensive stat or area damage, which is now triggered by your pets. For your chest you will ideally have intelligence and vitality with Wall of Death damage. For your belt you will want intelligence, vitality and all defensive stats with the exception of firebomb damage, which is also viable. For your legs you will want intelligence, vitality and either armor or firebomb damage. I recommend the defensive option. For your boots you will ideally have intelligence, vitality, armor and zombie charger damage. For your rings you will want either intelligence or fire damage with crit damage and crit chance. The same for your amulet, which should be a Hellfire amulet with a relevant passive, which we will get to in a moment. As for your weapon, you will want it to roll as high damage as possible with a 10% increased damage and ideally a vitality roll. And for your mojo, you will ideally have intelligence, vitality, crit chance and Wall of Death damage. Finally, for your braces, you will want fire damage, intelligence, vitality and crit chance. Now, many people who've seen variations of this build may be wondering why we are taking fire instead of poison, and I will explain this a little later in the video. For now, let's take a look at the gems you will be needing. Obviously you will be wanting yellows in your armor and a green in your weapon, but for your legendary gems we are taking the Bane of the Trap, followed by 2 defensive gems that synergize very well with each other and your passives, these being an Esoteric Altercation and the Wildebeest Gizzard. This too I will explain a little later. First, a look at the passive. As I mentioned before, the main synergy will be coming from the passive Swampland Attunement. The combination of the 2 legendary gems with this passive and an increased radius from your mojo will allow you to be able to take truckloads of damage while surrounded by hundreds of enemies, and I literally mean hundreds of enemies on the hardest difficulties. As for your damage output, however, the next passive you will be needing is the new Confidence Ritual that allows us to deal 25% more damage to enemies that are near us, which will be 90% of the time, as this build is primarily a melee build. Next will be the trusted trio of Graven Justice, Midnight Feast and Spirit Vessel, which is on my amulet. If you do not have a Hellfire amulet, then I suggest dropping Midnight Feast, as the rest are totally vital to the build. Now for the abilities. The bread and butter to this build will be the Zombie Charger with Zombie Bears rune, the Wall of Death with Firewall rune. You will then want Spirit Walk, Piranado, Soul Harvest with Languish, and Firebomb with the Pyrogeist rune. Now a quick look at our paragons before I explain how the build works. We want to cap our movement speed, then dump into intelligence. We want crit chance and crit damage, then cooldown reduction. We want armor, life, then resistances. Finally, we want area damage and resource reduction. If you are lacking in vitality, you can always take the points out of movement speed and throw a couple into vitality if needed. Now, why are we using fire over poison, and why are we taking Pyrogeist over blazing spiders? Many people are choosing to take blazing spiders and poison damage to maximize the effect of their zombie bears. Zombie bears consuming a lot of mana to cast, and blazing spiders returning that mana, whilst poison being the element of the main spell. However, we are doing things differently under the assumption that you will be playing this build on the highest of difficulties. In such circumstances, it is not always an option to stand still spamming your bears, as many enemies only need to hit you once to make you go splat. In such cases, you need to utilize what you have at range while still being able to output an effective amount of damage. For this reason, we take Pyrogeist and prioritize fire damage. This makes our Wall of Death hit like a truck, whilst being able to spam our Firebomb at range, with our mimics stacking up a shit ton of flaming fountains mountains all over the map, and it can be a beautiful thing. The technique to this build is to grow stronger defensively by having the most enemies around you as possible at a single time. This means collecting large packs of enemies, pulling them into one spot with Piranado, then laying down stacks of firewalls and nuking the crap out of everything with your bears and firebombs. Remember to keep cycling your Languish and Spirit Walk, as Languish will give you a 30% armor buff for a short duration whilst your Spirit Walk is on cooldown. Pro tips: try to keep your back to a wall if possible when spamming your bears, as it forces them to summon in front of you in a more precise line of fire. Also, for your healing potion, try to get hold of the potion of amplification, as this will synergize greatly with the regen from your Wildebeest Gizzards gem. When in doubt, do not hesitate to run out of combat for a few seconds, allowing your health to recharge along with your shield and cooldowns, all of which only take seconds to return to you. Seconds that are far better to sacrifice than your life, which can be easily lost on high difficulties merely from the amount of crap that you see on the screen, hindering your ability to notice one-shotting AoEs and attacks. A final tip I would say is, if you have any room to adjust your secondary stats on any of your items, try to focus on melee and ranged damage reduction. This build is unique in its combination of both ultra aggressive and defensive playstyles. Collect, nuke. Never kite backwards unless absolutely necessary to avoid death. That's the build, guys. The next video will probably be on the new Arrakis set, which isn't viable for greater rifting, but it is however the best set for farming T10 bounties, so stay tuned for that. If you liked the video, please give it a like and consider subscribing for more Diablo 3 content coming soon. Okay guys, until next time, take care and have fun.